Hey there, pretty people, and welcome back to Enigmatic 6 Expert. So, in the last episode, we got some work on with magic and stuff. And today, what do you say we switch back to technology to make our life a little easier? And of course, we're not starting anything without the good old recap section. So, first things first, clips. So yeah, in between episodes, I went far and wide to gather all the ingredients I needed for all these glitches, some of which were particularly difficult, and I had to travel, thousands of blocks away. But well, in the end, this is all we got, and I made a few new spells. So we have this. It's basically just harming a bunch of amplifies. Then we have this for fast travel. Of course, we don't have anything to negate fall damage just yet, so I added a little bounce at the end. So, we don't freaking fall to death like I always usually do, which somehow I still manage to do anyway. And we have this in case you don't really wanna launch yourself anywhere, but, still don't wanna just fall. And yeah, this one is pretty self-explanatory. So, in the process of finding ingredients for the clips, I also found this book. So this is very, very useful for traveling. Here, let me show you what it does. First, let's get some fall insurance and take off. And yeah, basically it lets you glide as if you were like wearing an elytra for 1 minute. And the reason why I needed that bounce, yeah, you see, sometimes I just suck with the landing and bounce will, save my ass. Okay, so I also made another little thing here called the scanner. So here it has a few modules that you can put inside the scanner. So you can have up to 3 active modules at once. And if you stop wanting to use any modules, you can just put them into the inactive slots. It's also very simple to use. Just hold down right click and boom. It will show you anything it managed to find. So here we have all these ores. And since I had to travel a lot in between episodes, I also took that as an opportunity to go mob hunting. So I went to hunt down other mobs and I managed to gather a ton of ender pearls, with which I crafted these endrium ingots and upgraded all my tools. So you can see they're very dark green bluish. But yeah, endrium is just simply better. If you're looking closely, you'll notice that the enchantments on my tools are different. If you're gonna switch out the parts of your Tetra tools, then you have to be really conscious about the enchantments because those are part specific. Like the enchantments are not applicable to the whole tool, just the parts. So here, if you press shift, you can see that these enchantments are applied on the blade. So if I were to replace the blade right now, I would lose all the enchantments. So yeah, that's another thing you need to pay attention to when working with Tetra. On the topic of mob hunting, I also managed to hunt down some basalts and got their shards. Now, this will be very useful, and I will show you how in just a second. So it has much to do with pulverizer. So here you see it has a slot for catalysts, and here I'm using flint, and its catalyst stats can be found with JI like this, and you can pretty much click here to see all available catalysts. And you can see we have the basalt powder, which is a much more powerful catalyst than the flint. So we're gonna make use of that. Okay, so we have 3 basalt powder here. So now we're gonna immediately replace it and keep on processing these shards. And it's also important to note that this powder is used up very quickly because it has 50% use chance compared to Flint's 20% chance. So you should use it very wisely, especially since Temple Souls are very hard to find. Like, I have spent hours on end just to find a few. Let me finish up catalyzing this polarizer first. And last thing I did was upgrading all these chests to diamond chests. So now we're capable of storing much more items in here. Yeah, we still have like 4 empty chests. So storage right now is not a problem. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do today has a lot to do with create. So first we have the basic create stuff like belts, straps, wheels. And then we're gonna need to craft some more of these. First, a deployer. This is very simple. And a mechanical press, which we're all familiar with. And the reason for that would be to make armors. So I think a lot of you would be wondering why I stuck with chainmail armor. It's because it's the only one that I can craft normally. For any higher tier armor, we're gonna need to go through a process called sequenced assembly. So in a sequenced assembly, there are several steps and a certain number of times you have to go through those steps. So for example, for armor, it would be deploying material and then pressing it 3 times and then repeat it a number of times equal to the number of material units that would normally take you to create that piece of armor. For helmets, it should be 5 times, boots 4 times. You get the deal. So without further ado, let's get to crafting. Okay, so we've basically got all the things we're gonna need. Let's set this up somewhere over here. So the assembly line can be as simple and compact as this. Now to get it running, we just need to give it some rotational force on all the machines and all the belts. But of course, we still need to take into account the kinetic stress capacity of our current windmill because, you know, all these machines will use up some of that capacity. So what we're gonna do is extend the windmill, and fortunately I still have a lot of empty sails left, and I guess I'll see you in a moment.
Everything changes.
And done. Now it's twice as high and in turn twice as beefy. Aesthetic wise it's kind of meh, but you know, functionality comes first. And now to channel the power to the assembly line.
Life.
Okay, so I actually spent much more time than I would like to have spent, but here we are. I don't know, I kinda just spent the whole day tweaking here and there, but we now have a functional sequenced assembly line. Let's make some new armor pieces so that we can test out our assembly line. Okay, so apparently there were a few miscalculations. So first, let's not have this run just yet. And grab my materials. Yes.
Life.
And there we have our bronze ingots. Okay, now let's temporarily disconnect this so we can run this. So basically, this is how it works. So we're gonna give these bronze ingots to the deployer and just throw the helmet on the belts. And whoops, wrong helmet. Let's retrieve the chainmail helmet by right-clicking on the belts. Come on. And you can tell it's no easy task either. Okay, back with the correct helmet. And again, just throw it on the belts. And if there's a valid recipe with the valid machines, then the assembly will begin. And after 5 cycles, we have our bronze helmet. Very cool. Now let's do the same for leather tunic. Okay, so this assembly line actually has a slight disadvantage, and it's that it's also reliant on the belt speed, which means if you want it to craft quickly, then you need to speed up the belts, and that will make it hard to manually catch items. So if possible, I would suggest some sort of automation system, but since we're currently poor as fuck, I think this is enough. And now I want to clear up some misconceptions regarding how kinetic stress capacity works. So it actually doesn't matter how much capacity a generator has, because the stress impact of connected machines will always scale proportionately. So it doesn't really matter how big your windmill is, it can only support so much speed for so many machines. And done. Now with this new windmill, the line should be sustainable and independent. So the next thing we're gonna make today has a lot to do with enchanting. More specifically, the XP required for enchanting. So as we all know, picking and choosing enchantments chip away a lot of your XP levels. And my solution for that problem would be a spawner-based grinder. So in the previous episodes, we've established that we can harvest mob spawners with a silk touch pickaxe. And here we have these spawners, which are not very fit for XP farming. But I have just the thing out there. So we're back here again. If you remember, this is where we perform the ritual for the soul shard. And with our silk touch pickaxe, we can now harvest this zombie spawner. And we can now also gather this chest. Alright, let's head back. Now to prepare for the grinder, first I'm gonna need to craft some encased fans. Fans crafted. Now I'm gonna grab a piece of netherrack. And of course a lot of cogwheels. Now as for location of the grinder, it's gonna be right under this chamber for proximity's sake. So the rough idea is this: a 9x9x9 cubic room for the spawning area. Now for construction safety, I'm gonna just spawn proof this area for now. Here's the rough layout. So we have a 9x9 area for the zombies on one side, and on the other side we'll gather the zombies, and here we'll slash them and gain our rewards. So that's the rough idea. There's still a lot to implement. Our next step should be to actually gather the zombies. And to do that, we'll want to lower this platform. Alright, so far the spawning area looks something like this. Now we just need something to drive the zombies towards the center. And the cheapest thing would be water. Okay, so to cut you all some slack, here's what the water stream is gonna look like. Now let's stop the water right here and I'm gonna start digging down. And 22. And the zombies should be down to half a heart, falling from that height. And down here is where we'll start making use of the encased fan. First, let's dig out an area for rotational force generation. And space cleared. Now you can generate some rotational force using the encased fan itself. First, you're gonna need a heat source. So in this case, I'll have an ever-burning block of netherrack. Just place the fan facing the heat source and it will start rotating. Now you're gonna need to provide it with a redstone signal as well. So let me just borrow some cobblestone. And now it's generating rotational force. Now it has very weak capacity, so I do not recommend that you use this for your general machinery. But since we're only powering one fan, it should hopefully be enough. And now to channel this power to the fan, the fan is working and is blowing that way, which is correct. Now onto the other tube that will lead the zombies upwards. So the rest of this whole process is gonna be very tedious and repetitive. So I'm just gonna skip forward and you can watch the full building process on my second channel. And after working very hard for very long, the grinder has been completed. So a few changes were made to the construction plan. Most notably, it's now a skeleton grinder. It's mostly because the zombie spawner caused a few problems and those were very annoying to fix. Also, I forgot to press record for a very major part of the whole building process, so I had to roll back the backup. So if you're interested in watching the whole building process, you'll notice that it's majorly different than what I'm showing you here. Now let me give you a quick walkthrough of the grinder. So first, we had the spawning room, and when the skeletons spawn, that we drop down here and the water will take them down this hole. And down here, a fan will blow them this way into the water. And with the help of a fan, they'll be blown into this spot. And once they're all gathered there, I can just stand here and punch their feet or something. Now let me give you a test run. So you see, the skeletons will spawn and they'll fall down there, get their health reduced, get blown by the fan, and end up here. And now we have two skeletons. Both are at 1 HP, so I can just whap their feet. Let me turn off the magnet and whap you. Sometimes a few of them end up with like full HP and I have no idea how that happens. And that's really peculiar, but it's actually not that much of a problem. So let's let this run for some more time to get a lot of skeletons in. Hey, I think that should be enough skeletons for now. Let's just wait for that last one. And there it goes. Okay, one of these is playing some music. Now to really bump up the efficiency of this grinder, I have with me a helmet with an enchantment called Insight. So what this enchantment does is that it gives you more experience. So now I'm gonna put this on and slice them. And you see, with this helmet on, I went from level 12 straight to level 20. So yes, if it's possible, I would very much recommend you get this enchantment before building any sort of XP farm. It will be very worth it. So now I'm just gonna leave this helmet here so that I don't forget to bring it around anytime I need some XP. And let's carry on to our next task. So for our next task, I've marked pretty much everything we're gonna need. So I'm gonna start making these one by one, and then I'll see you again once I've got them all. For the time being, just enjoy the time lapse. If you enjoy time lapses, that is. Now I've got everything I'm gonna need to build the next contraption. And with all of these components, I'm gonna construct a tree farm. Specifically, a baobab tree farm. Now, since these trees are very tall and also very space consuming, I'm gonna need a large opening. So let's get started with flattening the ground in this area. Now we got a workable opening. Now I'm gonna dig a 2x2 hole here to mark this area. And I'll place down the bare bone machines. It's worth noting that the size of the area that these trees will take up when they mature is 6x6 blocks. It's actually more of a circle, but realistically, the significant metric here will be the size of the bounding square, which in this case is 6x6. This 2x2 square is where the saplings will go, so I'm gonna change up the marking a little. And yeah, the bare bones and the heavy lifters are in place. Okay, let's mark this with acacia planks. And yeah, this is where the saplings will go, you already know that. Now let's continue with the rest of the machinery. And it's important to remember that these machines don't automatically stick to the chassis, so you're gonna have to super glue every single one of them. And I'm also gonna apply super glue here for this chest, where the saplings will go for the deployers. And here's where the products will go, so wood and sapling and stuff. So another reason why I decided to mark the planting spot with wooden planks is because of how the deployer works. So the deployer will always perform actions 2 blocks in front of it. And the moment it starts moving, it will try to perform any actions it can with the provided items. So if these planks were instead some plantable blocks like grass or dirt, then there will be saplings outside of the designated area. And that, of course, will disrupt the system. Now let's move on to the moving mechanisms. Now we can't get anything moving without some rotational force. So first we're building another windmill. Okay, windmill time. Totally did not forget any ingredients, any parts. Wink wink, nush nush. Okay, so I had to relocate the windmill several times because of how cumbersome the cogwheels have been. Now let me fiddle with the moving mechanisms for a little bit. Okay, so it can extend this far. Is that too close or... no, I think that's enough. Maybe a little over. No, I'm gonna need to relocate this first. And place my gear shift. And then the extension poles. Okay, so the dormant tree cutting mechanism should look something like this. Now to channel that torque over to the planting mechanism. Okay, now the mechanical parts are basically settled. Now time to move on to the big brain part. Redstone logic. Okay, now let's begin working on the logic. And also, I totally did not forget the observer. Again, wink wink, nush nush. Okay, so let's set it up first and then I'll explain everything to you. Okay, logic has been implemented. Now I'm gonna give you a quick walkthrough of the logical sequence. So first we have the deployers planting the saplings that you already know. And we have the saws to cut down the trees. So when the tree grows, the observer will detect a block update. And it will then send a pulse to this repeater holding a redstone signal for 15 seconds. During which the gear shift will reverse the rotational force, which will cause the piston to drive all the saws forward to cut down the trees. Now this pulse repeater is set to high delay to prevent the two sub-contraptions from colliding before a new pulse is sent forward, and this will activate the gear shift that's connected to the planting mechanism. Now over here I have a clutch which will stop the entire system. So this will help us manage the auto shutdown when the storage is full. Now let's have a quick test run to see this in action. Now that the tree is grown, the observer sends out a pulse to the repeater. Now we're gonna go through an initial wait time of 15 seconds before the whole contraption starts moving. As of now, I really don't know how to mitigate this wait time, but it works. And we see it's cutting down the tree. And the tree is gone. 15 seconds seems like too much, so I'm gonna lower it down to 10 seconds. And now this repeater will charge up before it fires another pulse. 45 seconds seems a bit overkill, so I'm gonna lower it to 30. Okay, so that confirms that the cutting mechanism has time to retract. Now let's run it back again to see if there's gonna be collision with all these new delays. So we're gonna wait for 10 seconds before the trees is cut down. I suppose there's enough comfort to lower this down to 9 seconds. Cause I actually tested this in a creative world earlier and 9 seconds seems to work with this speed. Okay, so that one is off, which means the planting mechanism should move in... Yep, about now. Okay, one final test run before we call it. A pulse is sent and held for 9 seconds. Another 9 seconds for the tree to be cut down. After the tree is gone, another pulse is sent and held for another 9 seconds. So when the saws finally return, the signal will have been held inside this pulse repeater for roughly 27 seconds. So I'm gonna assume it's safe to lower this to 27 seconds. And with that, I hereby announce the auto tree farm is complete. Okay, I lied, it's actually not complete. There's still one final piece of logic that needs to be implemented, and that will involve the industrial comparator switch. First, I'll place a normal comparator from this chest. Gonna place this lamp over here. So we actually don't know how much power this comparator is outputting into the lamp. And that's where this gauge will become handy. I mainly set it up like this for ease of monitoring. So the level is 1, which seems to add up. Now if I take these out, it should drop down to 0. That much is clear. Now I'm gonna change this so that when the chest is almost full, it's gonna activate. And then deactivate when it's down to 13 again. So for as long as this chest is nearly full or at full, the signal will remain at 14 or higher, and this switch will be on. So I have on me a wireless switch link receiver. Using an ender pearl, I can set this link as the target, and then I can plug the pearl into the comparator switch. So when this chest is almost full, a signal will be sent to this link, enabling the clutch, which will halt the entire system. That's the idea. Also, I put it on the wrong chest. Sec. Now, I'd like to give this a quick test. So I'm gonna force feed the system a little. Now the chest might be away, but it will return anyway, so there's no worry. Okay, it's only up to 3, so I think it's gonna take a while to actually reach level 14. So we're not gonna see the clutch in action anytime soon. So in the meantime, there's an itty bitty thing I can do. Now with all the wood that we're gonna get from that tree farm, it would be beneficial to create a automatic sawmill using the mechanical saw. And to set it up is super simple. And we're back here again. Now I want to utilize this windmill. So first I'm gonna check if it's at its limit yet. And we're good to go. Okay, so we got a pretty prime spot to start channeling rotational force from. Okay, gears and shafts are connected. Now, in case you might have any questions regarding the clutch, it's not a problem, because the gear that channels to the sawmill is on the same side as the source, so the clutch won't stop its rotation. And there we have a very simple sawmill. Also, if you've noticed, the saw can do damage to you. A lot of it actually. So just be careful around it. And now let's test out this little sawmill. Okay, since this mechanical belt doesn't synergize with this hopper, we'll have to replace it with a chute. So the raw logs will be turned into stripped logs and some tree bark. Then the stripped logs can be turned into planks for more than what you would get from crafting. So it may not be instant, but it will definitely be much more efficient. Okay, now let's revisit pretty pipes a little. Hope you haven't forgotten about these bad boys yet. And now with these pipes, I would like to construct a cycle to fully process raw logs into planks. And I'll only allow it to extract the stripped logs. Now I'll connect the pipe and give it a high speed increase module. And the line is complete. We just start seeing a lot of planks being pumped into this chest. And with this tree farm and this sawmill, we will never ever run out of wood again. And with that, episode 11 has come to an end. I hope you enjoyed watching today's episode as much as I enjoyed making it. And if you really enjoyed it, then why not drop a like or maybe even a subscribe? It might be a small gesture from you, but it will mean the world to me. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again very soon. Until then, take care.